And it appears he got flagged down at Mason and Geary Street by a male.
He instructs the cab driver to take him to the intersection of Washington and Maple.
But actually end up stopping at Washington and Cherry Street, which is about 4 blocks away. It appears at that time that the passenger reached up and shot Mr. Stein in the right temple with a 9mm handgun. It appears that he killed him instantly. The passenger in the car got out, opened his door, reached over, took his wallet, took the car keys, tore a part of Mr. Stein's shirt off. It appeared that he was wiping down parts of the cab, possibly to remove fingerprints. And then he casually walked away.
Within seconds of the murder, the San Francisco Police Department received a call from a witness.
There were some teenagers who observed part of the action. They saw him get out of the car, reach in, do something with Mr. Stein. They didn't know what. Dispatch put out a description of a suspect, and for some reason it came out as a black male. There were some officers heading towards the scene. They actually saw a white male walking down the street, slowed down, took a look at him, but kept on driving. It's very possible that was Zodiac.
Witnesses described the killer as having short hair, horn-rimmed glasses, and a stocky build. A bloody fingerprint was found in the cab and analyzed, but never matched any suspect. At the time, police did not connect the murder with the Zodiac.
It's not unusual for cab drivers to get robbed, and occasionally they do get shot. So for the first couple days, it was treated as just that, a robbery-homicide case. And then a letter was received by the Chronicle by someone claiming to be the Zodiac, taking credit for the crime.
The letter arrived 2 days after the incident. It contained the missing piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt.
This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here's a blood-stained piece of his shirt.
The same letter contained a threat that put the city and county into an uproar.
School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tires and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out.
The Zodiac's threat was taken very seriously.
Mostly the Napa Sheriff's Department and other agencies around began following school buses on a daily basis.
We had airplanes following the school buses. There were armed guards. Back in the late 60s, this was something brand new. We really didn't quite know what to make of this guy.
You're not afraid?
No, I'm not.
No, not too afraid.
The attack never came. But at this point, in October 1969, police and the media were nervously awaiting another correspondence or another murder.
The fear level, I guess, would be at its highest around the time of Paul Stein, because then no one was really safe.
3 weeks after Paul Stein's murder, police received a greeting card.
This is the Zodiac speaking. I thought you'd need a good laugh before you hear the bad news.
Although police had confirmed 5 murders, the Zodiac claimed he had killed 7. And this was just the beginning of the Zodiac's game with the police.
He wasn't going to tell them anymore. He wasn't going to predict the murders. He was going to make them look like accidents. That was even worse. He had no idea.
Also within the 7-page letter was information that would not be understood until years later.
One of the pages in this letter contained a diagram of a bomb that he was going to use. And on another page was a crossed circle. And on the circumference of the circle were 5 X's.
The bomb was taken seriously, but could not be found. The symbol with X's did not seem to have any relevance to the case. It had been 10 months and 20 days since the murders of Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, the first murders attributed to the Zodiac. At this point, an onslaught of communications from the Zodiac to the police and the public began.
When we were working at the Chronicle, people were, after a while, on the alert for any letter, and they were easy to spot. Triple postage, rush to editor, very strange, childish kind of handwriting.
Most of the Zodiac's letters taunted police for not catching him, and the tally of murders he said he committed continued to rise. At this point, it was quite clear the Zodiac Killer was using the media to get to the police. But because of the nationwide media coverage, In November of 1970, police were able to make a connection to another murder, which had occurred in 1966, just outside Los Angeles in Riverside, California. It was quite possibly the Zodiac's first victim. Her name was Sherry Jo Bates, and she was an 18-year-old college freshman. Her body was found several blocks from Riverside City College on October 30th, 1966.
She was lying face first in the dirt between two of these houses that were used to house students. Her throat had been slashed, and she'd been stabbed in the back.
A man's wristwatch was found at the crime scene, stopped at 12:23, although the time of death was determined to be between 10:30 and 10:45 that night.
30 days after Sherry Jo Bates was killed, somebody sent a typed letter titled The Confession. In this letter, the person took credit for killing Sherry Jo Bates.
I told her that my car was down the street and that I would give her a lift home. When we were away from the library walking, I said it was about time. She asked me, about time for what? I said it was about time for her to die.
Several months later, more letters arrived.
One was sent to Sherry Jo Bates' father, another was sent to the newspaper, and another was sent to the police. And they all said, Bates had to die, there will be more. Two of these notes had a little symbol down at the bottom that looks like a Z. The documents examiner for the state of California concluded that these writings were written by the same person who has been preparing the letters for the San Francisco Chronicle.
But even today, the Riverside Police Department isn't convinced.
The RPD disagreed with him. They thought that it wasn't Zodiac. At that point, they were convinced that it was a local person.
Not one to share the spotlight. In 1971, the Zodiac wrote to the Los Angeles Times.
I do have to give them credit for stumbling across my Riverside activity, but they're only finding the easy ones.
He's playing a game, isn't he? And so far, he's winning.
By the summer of 1974, 5 years since his first correspondence, the Zodiac Killer had sent more than 20 letters, greeting cards, and ciphers to the press, including a postcard claiming an additional victim in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, and a map with reference to a California geographical landmark, Mount Diablo. His tally of murders committed was up to 37, but police only had enough evidence to tie 5 murders to the Zodiac Killer. Then the letters that could definitively be linked to the Zodiac suddenly stopped. Forever.
The criminal genius is a type we run into far more frequently in fiction than in fact. Was Zodiac a criminal genius? That's certainly how he saw himself and how he wanted to be seen.
There are thousands of pieces of information and possible evidence linked to the case that continue to be reanalyzed and re-examined by police and others that may reveal clues to the Zodiac Killer's identity. The codes the Zodiac wrote were sophisticated, exhibiting high intelligence and indicating a naval background. The Wingwalker shoe print at Lake Berryessa also pointed to a military man. In the letters, there are numerous references to the Gilbert and Sullivan operetta, The Mikado, as well as popular Hollywood movies, providing perhaps another clue.
I saw and think The Exorcist was the best satirical comedy that I have ever seen.
Even the genesis of the name Zodiac is open to interpretation. It may have come from astrology, or from a more obscure source. In the 1939 film, Charlie Chan at Treasure Island, the action takes place at a military base outside of San Francisco, and the villain is named Zodiac. Charlie Chan describes him. Dr. Zodiac, not ordinary criminal. He is man of great ego with disease known to science as pseudologia fantastica, criminal egoist who find pleasure in laughing at police. Was the Zodiac something of a mad genius? intent on creating a pattern through a carefully planned series of attacks? Or was he the stereotype of the serial killers we see in movies and on TV? A pathetic, disturbed recluse who really did think he was working on the collecting of slaves for the afterlife. Over the years, police questioned thousands of potential suspects, none of whom could be linked conclusively to the Zodiac. One of those people questioned early on was Arthur Lee Allen. Even with 2 college degrees and several years spent toward a master's degree in biology, Allen worked mainly at menial jobs. He lived in the basement of his mother's house and kept a trailer nearby.
The main reason that Allen came to the attention of the police was because 2 people came forward that said that in January of 1968, Arthur Lee Allen had told them that he was going to call himself Zodiac and that he was going to kill young couples at random, and that the murders would be very difficult for the police to solve because there would be no motive.
Allen was questioned in 1969, but was not considered an official suspect by police. Unofficially, however, many believed he was the Zodiac.
Many of the detectives in the case that I most respect have always believed it was Arthur Lee Allen.
The footprints at Lake Berryessa were size 10.5 wing walker. Allen wore size 10.5 wing walker. The depth of the footprints implied that the person was well over 200 pounds. Allen was well over 200 pounds and about 6 feet tall. And he had the background for it. He was in the Navy. He studied code. He was a sailmaker, which he had a sewing skill, so that would explain the personalized hood that was used at Lake Berryessa. The connections are very strong.
In a police report that was written by one of the investigators investigating the Darlene Ferrin murder case, he interviewed Allen, and in that report, Allen offered the information that he had a bloody knife on his car seat that day. He offered the information that he had been a student at Riverside during the time that Sherry Jo Bates was murdered.
This guy lived 8 minutes from the first crime scene out on the outskirts of Vallejo. He lived 5 minutes from the second crime scene. He lived less than 1/10 of a mile away from where Darlene Ferrin had been working in 1967 as a waitress.
It was not until 1991, however, that police had obtained enough circumstantial evidence to order a search warrant for Allen's trailer.
Things they found, like a Zodiac ring and a lot of weapons, pipe bombs, they found a lot of stuff. These are the kind of hard facts that I don't see with the other suspects.
But nothing found in his trailer conclusively linked Allen to the Zodiac. Although questioned and suspected for years, Arthur Lee Allen denied being the killer and was never arrested for the Zodiac murders.
They haven't arrested me because they can't prove a thing. I'm not the damn Zodiac.
The Zodiac killer or victim of years of police harassment? Arthur Lee Allen took the answer to his grave.
In 1992, Allen died at the age of 58 from complications associated with diabetes.
If he's a Zodiac, he got away with it for his whole life. But there are people that swear that it was him, that know, that actually believe it was him. They just couldn't prove it.
Not one piece of physical evidence ever tied Allen to the Zodiac, including the print found in Paul Stine's taxicab.
The things that make Arthur Lee Allen look like an interesting suspect are the things that are entirely circumstantial. You know, all these stories that make it sound like it's him, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, they don't pan out.
Arthur Lee Allen, he makes a great suspect, but he's not the only one.
Could the Zodiac killer still be alive? More than 30 years after the first murder, the hunt continues.
Catch me before I kill more. One of the things we know about serial killers is that they can't stop. But this one did. Maybe he found another hobby. Maybe he turned to stamp collecting and discovered it was a lot more rewarding.
There's a lot of people out there, most of them not in law enforcement, that are convinced that they know who the Zodiac is. And there's a ton of circumstantial evidence pointing towards a few people.